Logan? Welcome back to the World XP podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here and ready for some good convo.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last time you were on was some time ago, and then recently you've been in Argentina and Kenya and doing all sorts of stuff in the crypto blockchain world. And with some of the changes and we'll say uh, auditing and AI and Wild West of media and technology going on, I was like, let's get them back, figure out what's going on. But yeah, let's do a quick intro. Tell the people kind of who you are and what you do. We'll hop into the question from the last guest, and then I think probably that'll just lead us into the conversation because it's a good one. So,
All
floor is
right,
yours.
cool. Awesome. So, what's up, everybody? My name's Logan. I am an entrepreneur in the crypto space. What we do is we do blockchain governance consultancy, a little bit of AI consultancy too for our clients. Um, we might get into it more later, but what we specialize in is DAOs, which is a new type of organizational structure that runs on blockchain. So you could think of it like a new version of an LLC, a new type of organizational structure that you can actually incorporate in a handful of states now. So that's what I do. We build software to help manage decentralized operations and governance. But yeah, before that, I was a pro soccer player. Soccer's how I got to meet Eric as well. But yeah, I've been at full time at the entrepreneur thing for about 4 years now, and enjoying the grind and having a lot of wins, a lot of losses, and keeping going.
Well, you segued right into the question. The question is, what is the biggest challenge you've ever faced in life or business, and how did you overcome it? I think we can lean. I mean, if you have a good answer for the life one, but otherwise we can lean into the business. Up to you, or you can do both. I don't
I
care.
got both. I think I can come up with both.
All right.
So the biggest challenge, one thing that was really challenging for me was in high school. I was a good soccer player. I played down in Florida at the U.S. Soccer Residency Program. And every semester they make cuts. And I made every cut, which was cool, but I actually didn't make either roster that actually mattered. So that was the World Cup qualifying roster and the actual World Cup roster for the under 17 World Cup. So I thought that was a challenge for me because, I worked so hard for something for 2, 3 years. And then really I had to, after I didn't make the rosters, I had to pick myself up, and rise to the occasion to respond properly, both as a soccer player and a person. So that was one challenge in life that I look back on that hardened me up, and I thought it taught me a lot about resilience. And then the next one comes to the decision to stop playing soccer, and go through that identity shift of I was always the soccer guy growing up. I'd travel all over the world for it. I would miss weeks of school at a time. Everyone knew me as a soccer guy. And then 6 months into my professional career, I kind of felt a calling, to pursue blockchain, full force. So I had this mindset of, in order to conquer the island, you have to burn the boats. So I did that. I stopped playing soccer, went full time into the unknown of being an entrepreneur in this new space. And I think that was a big challenge, that identity shift, and just, making sure that I was going to be the best at what that I was going to be the best at what I was going to do. Making the decision to commit full time to entrepreneurship when soccer was, you know, my first love. I still love it. I never will stop loving it, but I had to transition away from it, and make peace with my decision, and I wouldn't change anything.
Talk through that shift, that identity shift a little bit, because I think you and I are of similar age, and some of the people that watch this are around our age. A lot of soccer people, obviously, as when I need guests, I go find my teammates, and it makes things easy. But talk through that as people are getting older and kind of moving into different stages of life. Like the one thing that they've spent so much time doing, training, gym hours, injuries, recovery, hotels, team buses, all of the above, right? Like all of a sudden, in your case, it was voluntary.
Yeah.
In other cases, it's involuntary, an injury or something like that. Or in other cases, it's kind of a slow phase out, which I think probably makes it easier. But like, talk to that identity shift from like finding finding a new, I guess, purpose. I don't know. How did you have to like consciously say like, okay, this is my new purpose now, and all the stuff that I did, because it almost to in my head how I would view it is like, okay, if I'm gonna stop doing this now, it's all not a waste, but like you've done so much, and then what do you have to show for it? It's like, well, in your case, you built a business, which is cool, and all the stuff that you learned from team building and all that stuff goes into that. Um, as I know and you know from thinking about it, but like walk through that kind of identity shift and kind of I'm sure you went through some days that were not so great. And
Yeah.
kind of how you dealt with that from the mental side. And then also the physical side, like because now you're not training for anything. You don't have
Yeah.
games on the weekend. It's like for me, it's like I'm still playing, so I'm like, okay, well, I need to be in shape so I can play. I have other reasons as well that I've kind of transitioned into. It's like I would like to be able to walk when I have kids or whatever. But like
Yeah.
walk through that piece as well.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is no matter what you're doing, you're taking lessons from it. I think at the top of that list is team sports. You learn about team dynamics. You learn that everyone works differently. You learn how to be a leader. You learn how to be a follower. You learn about commitment. You learn about sacrifice. And I would never, I could talk till I'm blue in the face about lessons that soccer taught me. Um, so as I made this decision, honestly, what I did, and maybe this gets into the religious aspect of me a little bit, but I prayed a lot. And I was like, hey, I feel like there's two ways I'm being pulled right now. Pull me in the direction that you want me to go and the mission that you want me to be on. And a few things happened where it was like, I didn't get called into a roster. And I was playing, the small-sided game with all the subs. And I was trying, really hard, knowing that I wasn't going to travel. And I remember it was next goal wins. And I was like the defender on the last line. And I go and I like pretty much do a fish dive to block the shot. It hits me in the face. I block the shot. And then it hits the post. And then it hits me in the face again and goes in the goal. And I'm just like,
Oh,
I'm like eating turf on Sager Field. So that was that. And then I think one of the next games, I was rostered. I got to start. I scored my first goal. And then the game after that was a 10-hour bus ride. We drove like I think it was like 10 to 15 hours. I don't know. It was all the way up to Connecticut. And we drove all the way to the airport hotel. And then we got there. I didn't start the game. I was on the bench. And I think it was tied until like the 87th minute, and then lightning strikes. So prolonging my misery of being on the bench and having the 15-hour bus ride back, and we're in the locker room waiting for like 2 hours to get back on the field. And we get back out there, and then the other team scores, and like then you got the just a drag of a drive home after that kind of result. Didn't even get any minutes. And I think it was around that time where I was like, okay, I think these are enough signs to where I can make my decision. So that's how I got there. And then with the identity part, I think mentally, trust me, there's a lot of days where I'm like, oh God, what the hell am I doing? Um, but like, what are we even going after? Like, we've been at it 4 years, and I think just now we're starting to really be in a groove of like we have a ton of potential ahead of us. Um, so I had a lot of those days, but at the end of the day, what I know is that nothing good ever comes easy. Um, and if this is a choice I made, I have to stick to it. So every day, get up, work. Some days nothing would happen. Some days some good things would happen. Some days some bad things would happen. But we just kept going. We found a way to survive. We, closed an angel tech there, closed an angel tech there, got a contract there, kept making payroll. And it was that type of life for a very long time. To an extent, it kind of still is, which is fine. It's just kind of the entrepreneurial way. But on the physical side, I'll touch on that a little bit. Is like you're right. Every day I had my workout planned for me. Like I went to the field, I trained, I went to the gym, I lifted, I did my mobility work. So now it's a totally different thing where it's like, okay, what kind of routine do I want to make? So what I have really done with myself is I do play soccer sometimes still, once or twice a week, but I also just wake up every morning and I run and I get my workout in. It's kind of like my time where I get my workout in, I come back, I get a little lift in, and then I have like a meditation kind of session before I start my day. And when I don't start my day like that, I can feel it. So kind of building a routine outside of soccer of staying physically fit has been a challenge, but I think think I've been doing a decent job of it.
Good. Well, yeah, that's good insights for sure. Um, okay, so I think last time we touched on the entrepreneurial piece more. Um, so if you guys are interested, go watch that episode. Um, let's see, where should we start? Let's start with real quickly, I guess defining blockchain, crypto, some of the terms that we'll be using, and kind of building out the framework of the ecosystem that we'll be talking about. So people listening can kind of follow along, and then as we start throwing terms around, um, they and also me are not lost.
Yeah. So I think the best way to introduce the blockchain topic is making sure you know that there's a difference between blockchain and crypto. And there's a ton of different tokens out there, right? I would say 99% of the tokens that you see out there are shit. And then you have blockchain, which is the technology that makes it possible to create a cryptocurrency. So what blockchain is simply put, it's a new type of database, a new type of record keeping system, where instead of this database being controlled by Facebook or AWS or Google or the government, it's controlled by a multitude of nodes around the world that all come to consensus to confirm transactions, to confirm information that is transparent to really the whole world. Anyone with the internet connection can verify this information. So what you have is a new record keeping system that is globally transparent. So I'm so passionate about it because I believe that blockchain will be the database that runs the global free market in less than a decade, really. I mean, you just look at what's going on now. You have all this waste, fraud, and abuse, and the most powerful government in the world spending tons of money throwing it around like it doesn't matter. And the reason that this was able to happen because it's not transparent and it's hard to audit. But if you put all these finances on blockchain, you suddenly have a system where everyone in the world can hold people accountable for the spending that they do. So that's kind of the difference between blockchain and crypto. And the other insight here that's important to know is like all blockchains are not created equal. So you hear about Ethereum, you hear about Solana, you hear about Bitcoin, you hear about Cardano. Like all these are different blockchains that have different trade-offs and pros and cons. So you have kind of Solana, which is like a meme coin casino. You get instances where transactions don't go through, and the slippage to try to get out of a meme coin is just you have to like take 100% hit just to get out of it. But it's fast transactions and it's good for some use cases. And then you have, like Cardano, which is the one I'm most familiar with, where you have 3,000 nodes around the world all confirming, and it's built on research and evidence-based programming and high assurance programming using a programming language called Haskell. So really, yeah, blockchains are going to be important. Decentralized finance, it's opening, all this world of opportunities. You can send remittances back to your home country in the blink of an eye without paying all these fees. You can do all sorts of stuff that wasn't possible before. So definitely super excited about the future of blockchain. And yeah, I'll try to make sure people understand what I'm saying and take a step back sometimes during this convo.
Yeah, the one thing that always gets to me is the security aspect. I think I don't remember if you and I talked about it, but um, at one of a previous kind of election prediction episode, at the end of the episode, we were doing our like hot takes for like stuff we'll see in the future, and one of the things that was brought up was voting on the blockchain. Um, and you mentioned Cardano has 3,000 nodes around the world. What's stopping like an AI or even we get into this kind of this like world of quantum computing and encryption cracking type thing that I don't really understand, but the I'll say like the headline or whatever that I've heard is like in 5 years or 10 years, like encryption is not even going to matter because quantum computing will be able to crack every encryption. So to me, we've got these two things that are about to conflict and collide. So how does I guess well, what are your thoughts about that? One, but two, to maximize that transparency, like you're talking about, it needs to be free from like in my head, if some entity is has enough power and or money and or whatever, then eventually they would be able to take over a blockchain regardless of, I mean, maybe some easier than others, but like where do we go with that?
Yeah, so I think the quantum question is above my pay grade. I think it's above probably
Everyone, yeah.
99.999% of people's pay grade because we don't know what the future is with quantum computing. But there is such thing called quantum resistance. I've heard of that term before. And to speak to your security question, um, I think what I'll do is just talk about the Cardano ecosystem and how we're going about it.
Yeah.
Because there was a huge network upgrade with Cardano, and it's the first of its kind. And what this does is it flips a switch from the Genesis keys being controlled by the three founding entities, the Cardano Foundation, IOHK, and Emergo, to it being controlled by a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So this is a treasury, which the smart contracts govern, that supports the whole blockchain ecosystem. And the only way to, say change the fees of the blockchain or change the taxes, the percentage of the fees that go to the treasury, which we call the taxes of the Cardano blockchain, is to pass an on-chain vote. So what does an on-chain vote mean? This means that anyone that holds ADA, which is Cardano's native currency, is able to either vote with their ADA themselves or they can delegate it to something called a decentralized representative. And Cardano is doing it through a liquid democracy. So, say I have a million ADA, I can delegate, 500,000 to this guy, 200,000 to this guy, and keep 300,000 for myself. And if I don't like how that guy's voting, I can pull it immediately. I'm not stuck with him for 4 years or whatever. Um, so you have to have a large amount of consensus between all ADA holders in order to actually pass something. Um, so Cardano is the furthest along with decentralized governance. I think other ecosystems have other ways to do it, but in terms of like one person can't come in, like BlackRock can't come in, buy all the ADA, and then just vote with it and drain the treasury. The reason for that can't happen is just because the thresholds are too high. For consensus among multiple parties to have to join together in order to make decisions. And then on top of that, which we'll get into, there's a constitution where in order for something to actually be a proposal, it has to be deemed constitutional. And if it's not approved by the what should be like our Supreme Court, but it's the Constitutional Committee, then it doesn't even go to a vote. So if it doesn't line up with the Constitution, it doesn't even go to a vote. So there's lots of different ways that people in the space are thinking about this security part. And yeah, I think Cardano's doing a lot to try to get it right.
Is the constitutional piece, like if it doesn't align, it doesn't even go to a vote? Is that done by like the smart contract piece of that? Or like how is that done?
So
Or like what do you I guess to couple that, what do you mean by the threshold? Like BlackRock can't come and buy all the ADA and then all of a sudden vote however they want. Like why can't they do that if they have all of it?
so they can, but the proposal they're voting on has to be constitutional. So how it works is every ADA holder actually votes in seven constitutional committee members, and their only job is to decipher whether a proposal coming to the Treasury is constitutional or not. So, and there's some interpretation of that, just as different Supreme Court justices
Hmm.
will have different opinions. Um, but yeah, it'd be interesting if they tried and test the system.
Yeah. So okay, so then let's go to the Constitution piece because this is something that you slash your company was I don't know is heavily involved with is the right adjective, but close enough. You were there and doing debating and giving opinions and stuff. Um, walk the development of a constitution that doesn't have a um, it's not a nation state, so it doesn't have physical land, but at the same time you want it to be decentralized. How did that development come about? What sorts of Was there a reason that somebody was like, "Hey, we should have a constitution," and then it kicked off the process, or and then to follow that on, did you guys take from? I would imagine in the U.S. Constitution, there's things that probably you could take from and adapt to have it be in the cyberspace world rather than physical boots on the ground. Um, so like, how did you go? How did you go? Or okay, how did it start, and then how did it develop?
Yeah. So it started because there's five things on Cardano's roadmap. There's five, I guess, eras you should call them. And how it works is so first you we knew we needed a constitution. That was just like widely known in the whole ecosystem. So how it works is first you start socializing it with the community. And then what happened is there was like 80 different workshops, I believe, around the world, or 50 to 80 different workshops around the world in many different countries. I went to the one in Austin, Texas. They were in Nairobi, Kenya. They were in the Middle East. They were in Asia. They were in Europe. So you had all of these small localized workshops where people that are interested in Cardano could come and they would have discussions about what needs to be in the Constitution, what needs to make sure that, what's like the Bill of Rights, what should the requirements for the different nodes around the network be, what rights do you have as a Cardano holder? Um, so I sent a request to share screen,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm going to show you a little bit of just like the Constitution here. Can you see that?
Yep.
So this is like our Bill of Rights here, our tenets. So transactions on the Cardano blockchain shall not be slowed down or censored and shall be expediently served for their intended purpose. The cost of transactions shall be predictable and not unreasonable. Anyone desiring to develop or deploy applications on Cardano shall not be prevented. The Cardano blockchain shall not ever lock in ADA owner's value or data without the owner's consent, et cetera, et cetera. So you had all these different workshops get synthesized into a constitutional convention, which is the thing that happened in Buenos Aires and Nairobi. And what my company did is we actually built the voting tool. So you can see it here. We got everyone's information so they were able to log in with their wallet.
Hmm.
And then after they connected their wallet, they could vote to ratify or they could vote no to not ratify. And then we posted the results of this vote on chain in order to have a delegate approved constitution. So that's kind of how it worked, kind of how it started. And, it ended up being this long document that goes through every single aspect of how the different kind of branches of Cardano's government will work. Um, but yeah, I'm giving you like the deep dive on Cardano governance right now.
No, it's good. It's good because the next or the follow-up kind of along the lines of the security question is like, what is the enforcement mechanisms of the Constitution? Because if you can't enforce it, it doesn't really mean anything.
So the enforcement mechanism is the smart contracts mostly. So you
Mm,
do have the judicial branch, and then you have thresholds. Like 70% of ADA holders have to vote yes to actually ratify the Constitution on chain. So that's one vote that's happening right now. The next vote is going to be the net change limit. So the amount of funds that can be removed from the treasury for 1 year. Whether it's like 200 million ADA or 350 million ADA, like that's what we're going to vote on. And then you also have votes about the budget spend. So you have people creating proposals to say, hey, we want, 50 million ADA in order to fund the development of open source projects in the ecosystem. And this is how we're going to administer it. This is how we're going to source projects, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that is enforced by smart contracts. If not enough, people vote yes, then it dies. If enough people vote yes, it automatically triggers the treasury spend or the updating the governance parameters or anything like that.
mm. So, what is the so what in terms of like, why do you care? For instance, like
Yeah.
I have some ADA, but it's on Coinbase, which probably I
Yep.
should probably do something about that and put it in a slightly better
Yeah,
location.
you should
But
delegate it to us as a decentralized representative.
okay, well we could talk offline about that because I don't care what you vote on. Um, but what the so what like future wise, like what are you looking at? You mentioned the transparency piece earlier, what's the so what in terms of okay, we've got some cryptocurrency and now we got
Yeah.
some rules
Yeah.
and
So I think the so what is it's back to I want to onboard everyone into decentralized systems. I believe that they're more trustworthy, that it's more equal opportunity for in a global perspective. Anyone can enter this economy if they have Wi-Fi. They don't have to have, KYC. They don't have to have a citizenship. They don't have to have, whatever you need to act like a bank account. It's so hard to get bank accounts in most places. We take it for granted here in the States. Like, so now what you have is you're able to download an app that is like a bank account, but really it's self-custodial. So what this means is that you know how when you download a crypto wallet, you get those words, right? And that's your
Mhm.
seed phrase. So that's like your fail safe. If you, forget your password or your computer gets destroyed or whatever, you have those words so you can open your bank account back up. But the point is, you're the only one that can access your funds. Like we've seen it in history, bank runs where people just lose their money because the bank fails or whatever it may be. Or you get there's also risks with crypto wallets as well, right? But now you can own your own assets. You can own your cryptocurrencies. You can own, stable coins. You can own real world assets. Like say your deed is on the blockchain. And instead of having all these middlemen where you have to sell your house, someone can just buy it from you directly and you can send them the deed. So I think to step back, why does it matter is because there's this new technology where its utility brings trust back into the markets, back into governments. And it also empowers people from the bottom up because anyone can be their own bank. Anyone can participate in this economy. So why does this matter with Cardano is because what we want to do is build a self-sustaining network state that offers this ability to transact on this transparent ledger for anyone in the world. So that's our mission that we're trying to do.
I hear you. I got two. I feel like. Hmm. Actually, let me phrase it like this. Okay, so one, how does this then get implemented? Because this puts a whole lot of people out of business very quickly. Whether it's what are they called? Notaries? Is that what they're called? I think they're called notaries. Notaries,
Noters.
notaries, bankers, lawyers in some cases, like a whole bunch of people. And these are not just people that kind of it's not just like the fear about the self-driving AI trucks and the truckers now are sad. It's like not that they don't have influence as we saw in Canada, but like lawyers and bankers tend to have slightly more influence over things like governments than truckers do. Whether that is right or not, that's a separate question for a different day. I just feel like that is the case. But so your kind of worldview puts a lot of people in very influential places out of business. How do you go about implementing it? So that's the first piece, and then the second piece is we've seen this push kind of for populist type nationalist governments. We saw this in England getting with Brexit, they're leaving the EU. Romania has a kind of nationalist type candidate, Georgescu. Um, Here in the US, people want to shut down the border, right? They don't want immigration coming in. Um, don't I know it's not that simple. Comments, leave me alone. Um, but we see this kind of around the world where people are kind of like, okay, no, let's close the borders, fix ourselves, and then we can go talk to other people eventually. And you and the blockchain kind of world view is anti all of that. And I think that the two can coexist, but the implementation piece always felt a little bit weird for me. Like I don't disagree with what you're saying and what the end state could be and maybe should be, but the implementation of it was always the piece that seemed like the hard sell.
Yeah. So, all right. I think the first thing I'll say is the blockchain worldview is very libertarian,
Yeah,
right?
I'm on board with that.
And
I'm with you.
so, so and the other thing I'll say is the only thing constant is change. Like, think about, I don't know the exact statistics, but a ton of people used to be farmers
Yeah.
until, we started doing monoculture and huge farms that would feed thousands and thousands and millions of people. And yeah, a lot of people lost their jobs as farmers, but there was new things to work at. And I think people talk about this a lot with AI too. It's like AI is going to replace everything. Like AI is going to
Yeah.
like do this. Like think about technology as it's created, and it gets created, it disrupts some existing jobs, right? But it also creates more than it does. So think about the internet. How many new companies and jobs were created because of the invention of the internet? But you can also say, hey, it ruined newspapers. It ruined, whatever outdated technology that it did a better job than.
I don't know. I
Um,
think they did a good enough job of ruining themselves, but
yeah,
that's
that
just me.
too. That too. But, like with AI, you see like autonomous driving, like, oh, they're going to replace all the Uber drivers. Before Uber existed, what did those people do? You know, like
Hmm.
technology just creates, it disrupts and it creates, it disrupts and it creates. So it changes the landscape. So in terms of like blockchain stepping on powerful people's, turf, I would say I agree. It can create transparency for government financing. It can, disrupt banks. But what I will say is, if you don't think banks are involved in blockchain and not researching it heavily and going to build the killer app where it's like, hey, this is a self-custodial wallet that, JP Morgan is letting people use. And they'll find ways to have, you own a stable coin in there. Hey, you can put it in this pool, earn 5% on it, and then they'll take the other 5% they can earn on it. Things like that. So I think that it's blockchain is just changing the landscape because there's a new way to do finances. And look, money went from bartering to shells to coins to paper to you know digital money that we have now, and now we have a new form of digital money that's like, if you think about Bitcoin, it's people love it because you can send it anywhere in the world instantly, and you can self custody it, and it's a asset that has a limited supply, and it's not going to be printed into oblivion. Um, and you can know this because it's codified. You know that there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin. So that's kind of how I think about it. I'm not sure if that really answered your question.
No, it does. I think also I've heard kind of people say or the sentiment that Bitcoin is the new gold in terms of like it's a long-term asset and maybe you don't use it for like, oh, I'm gonna buy a Chipotle bowl, but you might peg something to it, right? The gold standard was canned obviously in 1971 by Nixon, and then it's kind of like we've been printing into, like you said, into oblivion ever since. And so Bitcoin could be a way to do that. Trump seems on board with the Bitcoin train. I think he bought like some astronomical number of them, or he had the government buy them. I don't know if that's gone through yet. Don't quote me on that. I heard something about it. Um,
Bitcoin stockpile has not happened yet, but it's in the works.
okay. Well, there you go. So, in terms of let's go with voting as the use case, right? We talked about voting on the blockchain. How, if you've got different kind of blockchains out there, how would that work, right? So your company built a voting tool. Let's say hypothetically a government says, okay, we're gonna do voting on the blockchain now instead of in paper. Is that like, hey, we're gonna see which, is that like they go to a company like you and they're like, build us a tool on the blockchain that does that? Or like how would that get implemented? Because you might say, well, this person doesn't have they've got a Bitcoin wallet, but they don't have a Cardano wallet or something like that. How would that even work itself out? Maybe I'm not even asking the right question because I don't understand, but like how would that get implemented and or work itself out from, or even
No, that's
maybe it would be like voting in Congress is on the blockchain or something like that where it's less
so
than whatever. Anyways, go off that.
yeah. So voting in Congress could happen with the tool we built for the Constitutional Convention, and you could record all the votes on blockchain.
You hear that,
Whether
Congress? Anyways,
yes, it's
keep
it's very
going.
possible, guys. Yeah. So if you wanna do a little contract, we can do that. But how it would work in practice, and I will say we're a long way off. Like the government is so far behind the private sector that it takes a long time to actually change the way the government does things.
Hmm.
So the first thing that would have to happen is a new identification system for, it could start on the local level, it could start on the state level, it could start on the national level. It's going to start on the smaller level. So what you have to do is you have to come up with a decentralized identity system. So these are things called DIDs. So essentially, you can think of it as like you own your own identity. It's in your wallet. So you can say the government can, say, okay, in order to vote, you need to have a decentralized identity that says you're an American citizen. You have an address that we can see, or whatever they want to know. So the cool thing about DIDs is like you can go to a website, say, and you can connect your wallet. And instead of logging in with your email and password, you connect your wallet, and then it can say, hey, this site wants to get your, web information, your name, your whatever, and you can choose, okay, I only want it to have these things. Um, there's a lot of projects actually doing this where you get paid in order by providing your information because it's your property, right? Your data. Um, so yeah, you'd have to have an identity system. So maybe you go to the DMV, and they give you, you have the government's app, and they send you, a decentralized identity. It could be in the form of an NFT or whatever it is, and then you could just vote from your phone, because these are cryptographic assets where there can only be one of them created, and the government will know, okay, this citizen in Palm Beach County, Florida, voted this way in the election. And then it can also be a live tally of votes as well. As you can see, there's a lot of drama with that type of stuff, and definitely American elections and whatnot. But yeah, it would be quite the undertaking to put a federal election on. But like, if you want to put your board votes on the blockchain, we're working with an educational institution to put their Senate's votes on the blockchain. But it doesn't even, it's really just a really easy voting app where you just get on, it confirms you are who you say you are, and that you have access to vote in these different things, and you get to click buttons to say what you want to vote for.
Talk to that ID piece because the alarm bells in my head went off. It's like, oh, government digital identity and they verify whatever. It's like, then immediately my brain goes to, well, can they turn it off if you don't vote how they want you to vote?
No, they couldn't, because they, as long as you have the right information in order to be eligible to vote, you can vote however you want. And it can be where the government doesn't even have to know who it is. They just have to know a eligible voter did. So you can have privacy layers. So you hear like this zero knowledge proofs and all this stuff in the blockchain space, and that's what that is referring to. Is you can transact on this transparent letter on this transparent ledger, but you can also keep your privacy. Um, so yeah, I think it's the easiest way to think about it is like you go, it's like a innovation of the DMV. Like right now, it's like I don't know I don't know if you go to the DMV ever, but it sucks, right? It's
No, the
like you pick a
DMV
number.
needs no innovation at all. They are running perfectly, smoothly and efficiently at all times.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to figure out there, but in terms of, having user-facing applications where you
Hmm.
can cast votes and then under the hood it goes to the blockchain, it's getting more and more possible. It's just a matter of how do you actually implement the system to make sure that the right people have eligibility to vote on the right things.
Yeah, because you got two sides to that, right? You've got the election integrity, making sure that the votes were actually counted properly. And then you've got like the other side where in my brain it's like, oh, the China like social credit score thing where they're like, okay, you bought too many steaks this week, you can't drive your car or like you can't buy
Yeah.
gas or like they can turn off your whatever. And it's like that doesn't feel good. I think there was a bill that went through Congress. I don't know, a couple of years ago, and Thomas Massey brought it back up to shoot it down. It was like putting the kill switch in all the electric cars or whatever, that the government could just shut off your car. And I was like, why do they need to be doing that? So like when I hear about blockchain, and again, comments, please, if you have information, put it in the comments. Don't get mad at me because I'm not Googling these things. This is my recall, okay, guys? Anyways, point being. I get both sides of that coin where it's like, okay, we want the election to be like, okay, these are what the votes were. And then at the same time, it's like I don't want somebody to come bang down my door because I voted yes or no on this or turn off my credit card or now I can't spend any ADA because I voted this way on the Cardano blockchain. And it's like, hey, how did that happen? Um, and for people that don't understand, I can see it in your face. You're like, I have an answer for this, so I'll let you go. But like for people that don't understand, it's like it like feels a little creepy, you know?
No, the beauty of blockchain is that, like I was saying earlier, is you're the only one that can access your assets. So the government can't come claw them back. Like they can't
Mm,
stop you from doing anything. Um, and that's why it's rocking the boat as well, because you are truly self-custodying your assets and you truly have the power over them. They can't flip a kill switch on your crypto wallet, but they can flip a kill switch on your bank account. Um, so I think one thing that's very interesting is this new project called Midnight. And this is really a privacy layer that you can build apps on top of. So essentially how this works is, say we wanted to build a voting app,
uh-huh.
and what we wanted was, okay, we'll confirm that everyone is an eligible voter. Maybe they have to do, some sort of requirement. But then when they cast their votes, the only thing that is seen, so we know, like in the front end, that this person is eligible to vote. But when they cast their vote and it gets sent to the blockchain, the only thing they see is, okay, there was 100 eligible voters, 51 voted this way, 49 voted this way. And you don't get any information other than that, because it's all in a privacy layer essentially. So there's other things like this, but I think this is one project that, as you think through these, your fear of government overreach, like blockchain is the answer to that. Self-custodying assets is the answer to that. So there's a lot of different
Hmm.
technologies being made to in order to stop that from happening. That's the whole crypto spirit, is like, hey, like Bitcoin was made because of the financial crisis in 2008.
Yeah.
Someone was like, wow, money needs to be fixed. So they created Bitcoin. And this idea of a decentralized asset that people hold and people control rather than the government controlling it. That's where it started. So you have
Yeah.
this whole idea of how do you bypass the legacy system and the bureaucracy of all this stuff and just be able to transact peer to peer in any manner you want. So definitely interesting. And a lot of your questions, they don't have answers. Like they are tough
Oh, well,
questions,
fair
and
enough.
I'm trying to provide insights here, but they're good questions and things I think about too.
Okay, fair enough. I think the thing that's tough for me to get my head wrapped around is like it's digital, therefore it's hackable, and blockchain is like a different thing. Um, so everything you said makes sense though. Okay, let's shift a little bit to Argentina slash Kenya and kind of the Constitutional Convention. And I know we talked about that and you pulled it up a little bit ago, but like what are some of the things that you guys are debating through in terms of, well, I guess actually, I would also be interested in what are like what were super like everyone says yes to this thing. Like if were there any of those as well? And then what were some of like the hot button topics? Because from somebody who doesn't spend that much time looking at the crypto world, I dab my pinky toe in it once in a while, see what's going on. But like what are you guys debating?
So yeah, there was a lot of things that had consensus, right? Just because it was taken from the community. So I think like most of the tenets, we argued about the wording of them,
Mm,
but like we all wanted fees to be low and reasonable. We all wanted to make sure that the total supply stayed at 45 billion, like things like that. There was a lot of debate around what is a administrator. So what the Constitution states is that in order to have a treasury spend, the treasury must go to an administrator. Now, is this administrator have to be like a, a compliant entity registered somewhere? Could it be a multi-signature wallet? Could it be a smart contract? So there was a lot of debate about how to administer the treasury funds. There was more debates, man. I mean, thinking back to it, it's like talking about decentralized representatives, their role in the ecosystem, what types of thresholds, like does it have to be 70% of
So
D-reps vote
what
yes?
does that mean? Like the you have a treasury, but like what are you spending treasury money on or treasury
Yeah.
ADA on? Like because you're not a government, but also is it just sitting there? So like how like what?
So
Yeah.
so Cardano's been around for, close to a decade now. Of perfect uptime, by the way, just saying. Shout out Saul. So the reason that the treasury has been made is because for the last 5 years, the Cardano ecosystem knew that eventually we would get to decentralized governance. So every transaction, 20% of every transaction that was paid on the Cardano network. So normally you pay like, 0.1 ADA or whatever in order to send something. 20% of that would get deposited directly into the DAO treasury or the Cardano network state treasury. So it kept growing and growing and growing, and now it's at 1.5 billion, and we've turned the switch to decentralized governance on. So what do you use this funds for? So right now, I talked about the net change limit a bit. So the maximum amount of treasury funds that can be removed in a yearly period. So say this is about at 300 million. So one thing that you spend it on is the development of applications and funding entrepreneurs. You also will spend it on core development of the protocol. So increasing scalability, there's projects called Peros and Leos, and I won't get into those. But essentially what you spend the money on is things that will make Cardano grow more and increase the transactions and increase the users. And maybe you need to spend it on educational programs so that people that hold ADA understand that they do have power, and they can't delegate their vote to people. They can stake it to stake pools in order to earn yield. So there's a million things. I mean,
So like how would it work? Let's say I'm building a training package to educate ADA holders that they can vote and do all those things that you mentioned. Do I like send a proposal into the whatever and then there's a consensus that's like, yeah, we want to give this guy the funding to be able to do,
so
or is it like loans? Like, do would I have to pay up, or like, how does it work?
So you typically get into grants. So what you can see here, this is called Intersect. This company here,
Hmm.
and what this is a members-based organization. So anyone that is in Cardano can join this organization. And
Okay.
how Intersect works is there's a civics committee, there's a membership and community committee, there's a growth and marketing committee, there's a budget committee, there's a product committee. So what happens is you're able to come here and see what does you know what what is the word, request for proposals. All these committees will have budgets,
Okay.
and they'll be like, hey, we have 100,000 ADA to build a voting tool for the constitutional convention in Buenos Aires, um, like things like that. So you really, as a actor in Cardano, you can come apply for funding from these different administrators of the budget. And it can be for all of them. So like the civics committee, just to dive into it, they ensure that Cardano's governance is fair and accessible and transparent. The membership and community committee fosters a thriving Cardano community through tooling grants, education, and events. And then you have the open source committee, who acts as the rallying point for members to get advice on building open source environment. The project committee facilitates the processes that help Cardano community create a vision and strategy. So there's these different committees in this organization where you can come and you can ask for funding, if they have different tenders out that your company can complete. So if you wanted to do like a educational one, you might come to the membership and community committee and say, hey, I want to host an event in the DMV area to educate people about Cardano, and you can get some ADA to buy the venue or whatever. So yeah, it's super flexible and it's messy. It's decentralized governance.
So
There's so many different actors.
for you as an entrepreneur, is this in part of your like strategy as you run your business?
Yeah,
So like
100%.
so you mentioned earlier you get like angel funding, and for those listening, it's kind of like you get funding from venture capital, and expect certain things or whatever. There's certain stipulations with the funding. You could probably explain it better, but in a nutshell, that's my understanding. So is this part of your like this is how we get funding strategy?
Yeah, but yeah, it definitely is. And we've gotten a ton of money from grants from the Cardano ecosystem to build, a DAO product, to build the voting tool, to do all these different features and whatnot. So yeah, if you're in the Cardano ecosystem, an entrepreneur in the Cardano ecosystem, or really any blockchain ecosystem, you're typically going to look for grants so that you can get funding to help build for the ecosystem and make it better.
I have a lot of questions. I don't even know what
I
to
know,
ask.
I know you have a lot of questions when you start tapping your nose like that.
Yeah, yeah. I also, yeah. Um, okay. So for you as a business owner, then, with the volatility of crypto, sometimes you got to make payroll for people that are working in your company. So you have to, in my head, you would have to balance out how much grants you're getting from the Cardano network versus US dollars. Um, I don't know how much your overhead is. I'm not gonna ask or whatever, but like how, because if Ada has like a good couple of weeks and you happen to get like a grant, then all of a sudden, like, do you sell it and keep your, like, you know what I mean? Because then
This is a great question.
that feels like it's not in the spirit of what you're doing. But at the same time, fiscally, it makes a lot more sense. Like,
Yeah, so
how do you deal with that?
you can get lucky. Like we've gotten contracts for, a certain amount of ADA, and then it went up in price, and we're like, oh, that contract turned out to be a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be, and it can work the other way too. A lot of times when you ask for funding, you'll do it on the 12-month low, or like, you know, just a conservative price of ADA. But there's other, like, we don't only get paid in ADA. Like we have clients that pay us in dollars as well, to get access to use our software to manage their communities and run some different their votes, whatever it is. So yeah, but that's definitely a thing. So like a big debate right now going on in the Cardano ecosystem is the budget is being made for a 50 cent ADA. I don't know what ADA is right now. I haven't checked today, but it's probably like ADA is 80 cents right now. So is it going to stay at 80 cents? Might it go to $3? And then the budget is just super hyper, like it's worth way more than initially intended. These are all things you have to think about with the volatility of crypto for sure. There's no right answer to it because it can work in your favor and out of your favor too as you're trying to budget as a business in the space.
The other strange thing is like it really is what you want it to be worth. So if you are able to, you slash Cardano is able to create an ecosystem in which like things are paid with ADA only, and you could set pricing and different things, and maybe it doesn't have to be pegged to the dollar. Maybe it can be pegged to Bitcoin, or maybe it can be pegged to something else. Then all of a sudden, like you're looking at the crypto volatility, like it's only volatile right now because of the disruption that it's caused in the market for to some extent. So like at one point you might be looking at a world in which crypto is less volatile than like fiat currency or whatever. In which case,
Hey, at least crypto goes up. Fiat currency only goes down.
well, that's true too. Yeah, but well, that's why people are invested in assets because the like the dollar number goes up, but so it's worth more dollars because the dollar has less purchasing power. You get into this economic discussion about it where you end up with it's like, well, at its like basic level, economics is like, what am I willing to give you for this thing that you have that I want? And we've all just decided that it's going to be dollars for at least in the US recently. But if that ever goes away, I said this a lot on the show in terms of like the media landscape. We're going to be in like the Wild West for a little while, and it feels like we're going to be in this for economically as well, with crypto and some of the other things. So, like, do you have thoughts on that or how? I don't know. I'm just kind of like throwing thoughts out there at this point because it seems the disruption is going to be, it's like, I guess maybe to boil that down, it's like, how should people be looking at to navigate the disruption that is going to occur?
From crypto,
Yeah, economically.
I would say just have a percentage of your portfolio in crypto and learn about it. Download a wallet, um, experiment with DeFi. So I think really all you can do is it's like I think blockchain and crypto is at a similar stage to where the internet was in 1997 right now.
Yeah.
Uh, a few people understand it and they see the potential in it, and it's starting to snowball. And pretty soon, you'll be, on using blockchain and not even know it. You're going to download an app, you're going to earn rewards, and you're not even going to know that it's blockchain. You're just going to think it's fun. Um,
I like fun.
but yeah, I think in general, like when you see new technologies enter the marketplace, you see disruption in what exists and you see new opportunities created. So what I would say is don't miss the opportunity. Like you have the opportunity to get in early on a new technology that I think is poised to be the financial and identity backbone of the global free market economy. Um, so I would say just learn about it. Download a wallet, find some tokens you like. I like Bitcoin. I like ADA. I think ETH is cool. It was definitely like a first mover as a smart contract blockchain. I don't have a love for Solana because I think the shit that happens on Solana is bad for our industry, and you see a lot of rug pulls and people lose money there. And I think it might as well be on a centralized database, in my opinion. Um, and then the other thing is don't ignore AI. Like use it. Like your job is not going to be taken by AI. It's going to be taken by someone that uses AI. It's just like start using AI tools in your workflows. What I like to do is, you know, one day a week, I take 3 hours and just research AI tools and I try one or two out and see if it will optimize my workflow. Like I use this thing called Opus Clips. Like we do
I use it.
AMAs for my,
Yeah, I use it as well.
yeah, and it's like, dude, that used to take so long and be so annoying to do, and now
Yeah.
you just post a link in there and it gives you a ton of different clips that you can just post on a calendar by clicking buttons, and it does the captions for you. You can brand it however you want. Like that's just one example of all these different tools. You can have these AI meeting summaries where this little bot comes into your meetings and then you're able to, have a transcript with a potential client. And
Yeah.
3 months later, when you're thinking about it, you're like, oh, I have this transcript. Okay, he wanted this and this. Now we have it. So we can go and talk to him again. You can use what other AI tools? I mean, when you're posting blogs or creating writing, like just use ChatGPT or Gemini. And it's like if you want research done, if you're trying to build like an investment portfolio, you can be like, hey, ChatGPT, like what are some leading companies in nuclear energy or autonomous driving? And like for the first time in human history, we have these tools that can tell us anything whenever we want. We don't even have to search for it. We just have to ask. Like it's not searching links anymore. It's literally asking and
Yeah.
getting. And it's so powerful, and it's going to just like the productivity of humans is just going to keep compounding and compounding and compounding. And it's like I think there's this intersection where you have blockchain and AI. Like I think those are the two new technologies that are going to totally change the landscape and how the world works. I think blockchain with self custody, with the ability to cut out profit seeking middlemen. Like think about like all these industries that just crazy, man. Like the insurance industry or
Oh, don't
the
even
real
get me
estate
started on
industry.
them recently with the fires and some of the stuff in California. Anyways, keep going.
Dude, like there's these profits like imagine this is just a random idea I've had recently for a DAO, so a decentralized autonomous organization. So right now these insurance companies in my head, they're like, hey, here's this insurance policy, we cover everyone in South Florida. Okay, so when a hurricane hits, you guys are going to literally have a catastrophic economic event for you guys, and you're not going to be able to pay everyone out. How about we do a decentralized insurance policy where everyone pays, say $1,000 a year, okay, into this treasury. And then if you have, and there's like maybe 3 people in Florida, 4 people in Nebraska, 2 people in Texas, a few people in California, so that when the disasters happen, it's not happening to everyone at once on the same policy. and then you can get your money that you've been paying into this treasury and say, hey, I have, this claim, and then, the people administering the DAO approve it, and then you get your money instead of having to go through this arduous process of creating a claim and talking to these insurance people, and they're like, oh, this wasn't in your contract. Like, it's crazy. And I'm every time you swipe your freaking credit card, you pay 3%. Like, we don't even blink at that. Like, think about how much money you spend on your credit card and then be like, oh, 3% of that, you're just paying it away and you don't even notice. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, if we put this on different rails, it can be a lot different. Yeah, I digress.
that's all good. Um, do you want to do an elevator pitch for your company before we get you out of here? That was a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean,
Or did we?
so
If
we
I mean,
do.
if we did it already, then that's fine as well. But
No, no, I can do it again. It's we have two different products now. So one is a community management platform. So with this community management platform, you can pull your community in super unique ways. You can run incentive programs where people complete tasks, well, like retweet a tweet, get 20 points. Then they start leveling up on a leaderboard. They can turn these points into prizes, whether it's tickets to an event, more tokens, whatever it is. So we make it really easy to operate a like a decentralized community. So you can think of like a fan base, where you have this core team, maybe the marketing team, that wants to get more out of the people on the periphery of the organization, so they can really leverage the decentralized organizational structure that we provide. So that's one part, is just kind of a community management platform, and the other one is more towards the blockchain voting aspect. It's a blockchain governance tool. So really, you can get anyone you want to cast votes into the system, and then they can have an easy app to cast votes, and these votes can go on the blockchain. So those are the two products that we're really pushing right now. We do a little AI stuff where we just are able to build a custom AI agent that's just an ever-present marketer for your brand. You can choose which socials you want it to post on, what accounts you want it to interact with. So like, say it's like McDonald's and you wanted to troll Burger King every time they post this AI agent. Like, whatever you want to do, you can get creative with it. But yeah, that's what we do. And really, we build custom apps for people to manage their communities and have voting infrastructure that optimizes their organization.
sounds good. Guys, thank you for listening. Logan, thank you for your time. As always, links for all that will be down in the description. Any last nickels before we get you out of here?
No, man, I'll come back soon. I know I cut it a little short today,
No, you're
but
good.
once I have some stuff to talk about, I'll hit you up again.
All good. Sounds good. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Oh.
Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you want to watch another episode like this one, click there. If you want to subscribe, click there.